grinds my gears. What the hell is wrong with you? What the hell is wrong with you?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Monday night and welcome to another edition of Ryno's Rants. We got a little bit to talk about from that thrilling performance we saw yesterday in Las Vegas as the Minnesota Vikings went out and thoroughly dominated the Las Vegas Raiders, winning by a blistering score of 3-0, which coincidentally was the same score that the Minnesota Wild hockey team won by yesterday. So threes up all around for Minnesota sport teams, I guess. Yeah, plenty to talk about. We'll get into this here, kind of go over, hit some of the offensive stuff. I mean, that's where the big issues come from, I guess. But first off, before we get into anything, I want to send out condolences to the family of former Tennessee Titans tight end Frank Wycheck, who died Sunday at the age of 52. Apparently, he had fallen in his house, and they found him unresponsive. No further details that I have heard since then, but only 52 years old. Pretty sad. He was a great player. I liked him when he played, but just wanted to put out condolences to the family and prayers through the difficult time. Robert, Doc, Dan, Josh, everybody in the chat, good evening. Let's hit the A topic, I guess. The complete and total ineffectiveness of the offense for the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. Yes, Dan, offense recap, punt, 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 miss, punt, 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 punt. Yeah. We'll put it out first as what was your favorite moment of the Josh Dobbs era, because it appears that the Dobbs era in Minnesota, barring some sort of injuries or complete and total meltdown, the Dobbs era is over. Dobbs looked terrible yesterday. Now, granted, he did get helped out a ton by his wide receivers in certain instances. I think they had like 3 drops, I believe. But he was also sacked 5 times, most of which was not the fault of the offensive line, honestly. Dobbs sat back in there too long, just standing in the pocket and not doing what makes Josh Dobbs, getting out, running around, freelancing. Hey, good evening, Steven. And he paid the price for it. The Vikings paid the price for it. He played for a little over 3 quarters. And Nick Mullins, when Mullins finally came in, passed for more yards in less than a quarter than Dobbs did for the entire game. So that tells you anything right there. Won the turnover battle. That is a key point right there, Robert. We'll hit that here in just a minute. Tried to kill our receivers. Yeah, let's hit that one. Of course, yesterday saw the return of Justin Jefferson for a brief moment anyway, as early on in the game, Dobbs threw a high pass to Justin Jefferson over the middle, and he got completely obliterated. Ended up going to the hospital with what they were calling a chest injury. Now, he was checked and then released, and he was rejoined the team by the end of the game. So Kevin O'Connell today calls it day-to-day, and they are optimistic that he will be able to play against Cincinnati on Saturday, but we'll see how the week goes with that. getting receivers killed with his terrible accuracy. Yeah, and he did that once before with what put KJ Osborne in concussion protocol a couple weeks ago. Did it yesterday with Jefferson. There was a couple other passes that were way high that you can't be making those kind of laying your receivers out. To Robert's point here, basically hanging your wide receivers out there, you're just begging for them to get hurt, and Jefferson did because of it. KJ going to catch the ball or keep dropping everything? Yeah, he's struggled late, especially as of late. Now, some of that is, I think, the fact that Josh Dobbs is not very accurate compared to Kirk Cousins. So we'll see how things go here now with Mullins. To Steven's point here, Mullins looked a little nervous, but then settled down. I don't know so much if it was nerves or if it's just, he hasn't been on the field for quite some time. He was on IR there for 4 weeks and hasn't seen any game time since the preseason. So, it takes a little bit to knock the rust off. But, yeah, he looked okay when he came in and, let us down on that drive to finally get us a field goal there at the end, even though we tried to screw that up by, we were running the ball effectively, especially there in the second half. And for whatever reason, we decided to go back and start throwing again. Need better offense. Bengals look good. Flores was slow Browning. Yeah, and that's the thing. And we'll talk about the defense here in a little bit more. But to AJ's point here, going to be Mullins or Hall. It will be Nick Mullins. I know Kevin O'Connell has not made an official announcement yet, but it's going to be Nick Mullins. They're not going to start Jaren Hall. Jaren Hall is not ready to start. The only reason he started against Atlanta was because we didn't have any other options unless you wanted to trot Shannon Mannion out there. So, it's going to be Nick Mullins as well, because right now we are firmly in control of our own playoff destiny. 2-2 to finish out the last 4 games of the year. We're at least a wild card. We also control our own destiny for the NFC North. The NFC North is back in play thanks to the Chicago Bears taking down Detroit yesterday. We are 2 games back of Detroit with still 2 games to go against them. If we win out the Final Four, we win the NFC North. Are we going to win out the Final Four? That will remain to be seen. If you're looking at it from an offensive standpoint, I would say probably not. But looking at that defense that Brian Flores has been putting out there the last 5-6 weeks, we've given up 1 touchdown in the last 3 games. That is elite level defense that we are putting out there on the field right now. And, there's no reason to think that it can't continue. Are we going to hold the Bengals without a touchdown with those weapons they have? I would say it's going to be tough. But, if you can limit that, and I think Jake Browning will come back to earth a bit against this defense. But we have right now a top 5 scoring defense and a top 5 defense in, I think it's yards per play. Top 10 defense overall right now. If you look at the PFF rankings, when we talked about this in the preseason, Brunswick and I discussed this at length on multiple different shows. We were hoping if Flores could bring that defense into the top 15 to 20, that we would be more than happy with that. And he has far exceeded every expectation I had for this defense. This right now is one of the best defenses in the NFL. And there's no argument about that. We'll hit this one here again, finish off the quarterback thing. Need to see what Hall has. Really want to see Fields ball out so you can steal one of the top guys. Yeah, we don't need to see what Jaren Hall has right now. we have Jaron Hall under contract for 4 years, including this year. Jaron Hall is what we drafted him as, a 5th-round developmental prospect who, at worst, can hopefully turn into a decent backup quarterback down the road. Best case scenario, a serviceable, decent starter. But they are not going to put the eggs in the basket of Jaron Hall being the starting quarterback for the 2024 season. Whether they re-sign Kirk Cousins or not, and that remains to be seen, and that's a discussion for another time. But whether they sign Kirk or not, they're going to take a quarterback most likely in the 1st round. Whether it's somebody, if we're drafting in the middle, if we're taking somebody back in that range. I mean, if there's a guy they want, whether, it might be a Jaden Daniels or somebody like that looks like they may go up in the top 10, Kwesi will move up, package up something and go up and get him if they want him that badly. There was talk that they wanted to do that this past year and didn't do it just because the guy that they wanted got taken and the, compensation package may have been too much. We still had Kirk, so it wasn't as big of a need, but I'm not concerned about the fact of us having to move up or not for a quarterback. But my guess is we will take one in the 1st round unless everybody that we want is gone and we can't, for some reason, can't get up to get them. But I think on the Bears, we'll just talk about that real quick. I think the way they've played the last 3 weeks, I think Justin Fields is starting to show enough to where they may not go quarterback. Right away. They're going. They've got the 1st overall pick from Carolina. Their 2nd pick is now, I believe, it's like 6th or 7th. So with that 1st pick, I would not be surprised one bit to see them go Marvin Harrison Jr. should he come out. Declare for the draft. He has kind of threw a little bit of suspense on that with a couple of comments he made earlier last week about good evening, John. While not beating Michigan yet and some other things that he wanted to cross off his list, but some of it depends probably on where he's going to go. If he doesn't want to go, doesn't look like he's going to be able to go where he wants to. He may go back, but I think he ends up in the draft. KOC is right. Championship defense. Absolutely. This defense is good enough to win a championship. And for all the back and forth and everything else, and I saw this, I forget who posted it, whether it was on social media someplace today. I looked at so many different things. I don't remember exactly where I saw it, but if we still had a healthy Kirk Cousins and we hadn't had dealing with the injuries that we did, this team right now would be considered a Super Bowl favorite. Just from the way the offense was starting to click before Kirk got hurt, with or without Jefferson. And, the way the defense, hey, Thadir, okay, I thought John maybe was a new one, but one of the rigs is back again. But the way this defense is played, we're definitely championship level right now from that side of things. And it's kind of sad. I mean, I'm hoping we don't waste this defense this year because, we don't know if we're going to have Flores back next year or not. But again, that's another discussion for another time. Mullins gets comfortable. We can beat anyone. I think Mullins can do enough, especially, again, back to how well this defense is playing. I think Mullins can be solid and steady enough to where he can do just enough to, to win us some games. And I think it's back in play. Like I said, last week we were talking the NFC North is all but out the window. Now that is firmly a realistic goal again. So, and 2-2 gets us in the playoffs regardless of what anybody else does. So that's our minimum goal, is to finish out the rest of the year at 2-2. Jared just predicted, championship defense and a shit show offense opposite of last year. Yeah, that's who'd have thunk it, but yeah. Of course, nobody expected Kirk Cousins to be lost for over half the season with an Achilles injury. Nobody expected Justin Jefferson to be gone for basically 8 games. The offensive line yesterday, at one point in time, was Christian Darrisaw, Austin Schlottman, Garrett Bradbury, Blake Brandel, and David Quisenberry. Brian O'Neill was out with an injury. Ryno went out for a little bit. Of course, Ed Ingram did not play at all. He came up with I think it was a hip injury or something during practice last week, so he did not play. Of course, Brandel started in his place. I think you saw how many, we were talking about how many times Josh Dobbs got sacked yesterday, 5 times. Once Mullins came in, he wasn't sacked at all. With the patchwork backup offensive line in front of him, like I mentioned earlier, those sacks and a lot of stuff, you can't throw that on the line so much as it was the indecisions of Josh Dobbs and how things were going there. Detroit looks bad. They have come down to earth in a big fashion the last few weeks. Chicago should have beat them 3 weeks ago. Green Bay did beat them on Thanksgiving. Then, of course, they lost this weekend. Detroit is extremely mortal and beatable right now. And that's opening things up for us. I mean, we got them 2 of the last 3 weeks. So, like I mentioned, we firmly control our destiny playoff-wise, whether it be wild card or even the North. So stay tuned. We'll figure that out as we go along. The offense basically died when Kirk went down. I mean, it was good for that game and a half against Atlanta and New Orleans. And then once they started making adjustments to hold Dobbs in the pocket more, then we found out why Josh Dobbs has been on 7 teams in his career already, because he's inaccurate. He's indecisive. He stares down his receivers. He holds the ball too long. And, it's just not a sustainable way to go as a starting quarterback in this league. And I feel for the guy. He's a great kid, everything else by all accounts, but he's not starting quarterback material. We all bought into the hype for that 2 games or whatever it was there, but the Pastronaut has come back to earth, and they have grounded his space shuttle. He will not be taking off again anytime soon, barring injuries or something like that. So catching the ball would help. Like Osborne been disappointed this season. Yeah, he's had, and in a contract year, he's had a disappointing season. He's made some key catches as well, so we got to give him that. But he's some fairly routine stuff he has had trouble with. Even T.J. Hawkinson had at least one yesterday that he should have caught and didn't. But T.J. Hawkinson also set a Viking single season record for catches by a tight end yesterday, setting the mark at 85, passing Kyle Rudolph, who had previously had the record. So, he's been a key target this year. We had 5 catches yesterday. He was the leading receiver. But he does have drop issues from time to time. But, I mean, we wouldn't be where we are this season either without Hawkinson. So, like I mentioned earlier, the running game, fairly effective yesterday. Madison had 10 rushes for 66 yards before he got injured. I mean, running at a 6.6 average clip, that's not bad. Ty Chandler, 12 for 35. Kane Wangu got in for a couple of runs. Didn't really amount to much off of that. Greg Joseph shanked a 49-yard field goal early on that could have made the drama a lot less dramatic had he hit that early on. But then did come through, late in the fourth quarter there to get the only points required to seal the victory, and then had the pooch punt at the end that killed most of the clock. Interesting stat I saw yesterday. After yesterday's games, teams who have scored 3 points or fewer are 255 and 2 in NFL history. The Vikings are the only team to win that, made that the one victory on there. So that was kind of an interesting tidbit that I came across. At this point might be in his head, have a couple games where he's productive to get confidence back. Yeah, that wouldn't hurt, Doc, for sure. Hawkinson will be over 100 catches before the season ends. I don't see how he doesn't unless he gets hurt, because like I said, he's at 85 now. He routinely has games of 5 to 7 catches. He could have it by Christmas time, honestly, easily. Beyond that, want to get to the defense a little bit here now. Of course, we talked about it already a little bit, but the guy I want to give the biggest kudos out to is one Ivan Pace Jr. That guy was everywhere yesterday. Started off right on the first series of the game. I think he had tackles on the first 2 plays. Finished off the game with 13 total tackles, 7 of them solo, a tackle for loss, a quarterback hit, and of course the game-clinching interception late in the fourth quarter, and a pretty sweet backflip afterwards to finish off on that. Then, of course, the Vikings on that one turnover also pulled out the keg stand celebration, which I thought was pretty cool. But beyond that, the Vikings had Troy Dye, DJ Wanham, and Harrison Phillips all had sacks as well. 3 turnovers. Again, Vikings win the turnover battle. Most of the time, they win the game. I think they're now 18-3 in the Kevin O'Connell era when they win the turnover battle, something like that. But yeah, it's almost boggles my mind the turnaround that we have had on this defense from last year. I mean, you're looking at, in most areas, the defense ranked 31st or 32nd last year. We're now top 5 to top 10 in most categories until yards and stuff like that. I think we're like 15th, but especially over the last 8, this literally is one of the top 5 defenses in the NFL. And that, from a statistical standpoint, they are playing at an absolutely elite level right now. Hope they make Wes Phillips watch the keg stand celebration. Yeah, I wasn't going to bring that up, but since you did, we'll talk it. Of course, I think it was Thursday night before the Vikings left to go to Las Vegas. Offensive coordinator Wes Phillips got pulled over for misdemeanor DUI, blew a .08, which is the legal limit. So he was barely over, but, need to be smarter about that, I guess, is all we're going to say. It is what it is. It was stupid. Should know better, but we'll move on from it. tackling this year is spot on. Coaching, it absolutely is. And that, Flores is just the turnaround he's done. I can't speak enough about the job that he has done this year. The man deserves to be a head coach someplace. I hope to God he isn't a head coach someplace next year. I hope he's back here running this defense for another season and try to get in that Super Bowl window. And I think that's going to be an attractive thing for him because he sees it. Kevin O'Connell sees it. Kwesi sees it. The Wilfs see it. All of us see it. So, I mean, there's that he's got that definite opportunity. If he goes to another team as a head coach, there's going to be a rebuilding process, and it could take, 2 to 3 to 5 years or whatever before they reach that point where they may be considered in that Super Bowl caliber team. Whereas if he comes back here next year and we can get the quarterback situation figured out and be healthy going into next year, it's Katie bar the door with this team because, we've got a bunch of guys that are leaving at the end of the season via free agency, but we also have a ton of cap space coming up. And, this team has nowhere to go but keep going up as far as, finally starting to get out from underneath all those bad contracts that Spielman left us with, getting some young talent infusions into this stuff, the Ivan Paces of the world, the Mekhi Blackman has played incredibly well. I was high on this kid after we drafted him, and I started watching tape on him. He has played very well. Caleb Evans back yesterday played well. Interestingly, probably the weakest link in the back end we've had is Byron Murphy Jr., who, he's played well at times, struggled at times. Then you start looking at the safeties, Kim Bynum and Josh Metellus. I saw a deal today. Josh Metellus has lined up at both safety spots, both cornerback spots, slot, outside linebacker, middle linebacker, defensive tackle. So he's lined up at every level of the defense, multiple different places, multiple different reads. If anybody deserves to go to the Pro Bowl this year, it's Josh Metellus. That guy he's come out of basically being a bit player, special teamer, back up to being one of the better safeties in the NFL. And then you throw onto it, Cam Bynum is leading all cornerbacks in the NFL as in tackles. He's got over 100 now. And, normally you take a look at a cornerback having that many tackles. It's all because your front end is terrible and they're the offensive guys are getting to the second level and your secondary is having to make the stops. That's not the case here. It's because of the way Flores moves these guys in and out and around and everything. He's making plays. He's making tackles for loss. Cam Bynum has matured and improved exponentially this year as well. Wondering if he can play quarterback. Don't know. Maybe. Good evening, Dave. Got to walk the dog. That's the important stuff. Especially that horse you have, you don't want to have to clean up the mess afterwards if he does something on the floor. So you're excused for that part of it. But yeah, you look at other guys. Flores has taken Jonathan Bullard from just a guy to a fairly solid defensive lineman. Harrison Phillips has played considerably better this year. He's had a couple of very big games, had a fumble recovery, had a sack that, this past week. The biggest thing we have to still work on a little bit is getting that center that nose tackle put together. But guys like Kyrus Tonga, Jacqueline Roy, and Sheldon Day have been filling in there. And the run defense, which was a huge concern last year, and we got gashed every time we turned around. Outside of the DeAndre Swift game against Philly, these guys have been very good against the run. So it's a complete turnaround, and he's getting more out of most of these players than I think anybody really thought possible. This defense is better than peak Mike Zimmer. It is. That defense that Zimmer had back in 2017, 2018 was a very good defense. I mean, it was, but these guys are playing almost at a, dare I say, purple people eater type level as far as aggressiveness, as far as effectiveness right now. That, back to the days when you had not only the purple people eaters, but you had Millard and Dome and Studwell and all those guys playing in the 80s. This defense this year ranks right up with all of those great defenses that the Vikings have had over their history. And, I hope we can continue this on. Hey, Rap, good evening. And keep this defense rolling. I mean, we keep this defense rolling the way it is, we can play with anybody. Robert, guys are shutting teams down. They shut the 49ers down. They absolutely did. They made Brock Purdy look mortal. They made Christian McCaffrey largely ineffective. The dear life after Hitman might be okay after all. Yeah, I think we're in good hands with Metellus and Bynum right now. 2017 defense was number one. Will this be enough to take us to the top like Flacco and the Ravens defense? It could very well be, Dave. It would not surprise me one bit. If we can get even semi-competent quarterback play out of Mullins, I think we can make one of those Baltimore Ravens style runs. Is it enough to get a Super Bowl? We're Vikings fans. We can't expect that, but 98 Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 98 was our year there, Josh. I don't think, or was it? It was what was it, 99 or whatever it was with Tampa when they won with Brad Johnson. There again, defense wins championships. I don't buy that. It was because of Trent Williams. Trent Williams being out definitely was a benefit to us, but we've shown we've played against some very solid offensive linemen beyond that, and we shut them down. If Trent Williams would have played, I don't know that the outcome would have been any different against the 49ers. And again, with all the injuries we have sustained this year and had to power through, they don't quit playing the games because people get hurt. That's the thing. You got to play with who you've got, make do with what you've got. I mean, we're showing that right now. Cincinnati's showing that right now with Jake Browning coming in, taking over for Burrow. And this is going to be a hell of a matchup this weekend between these two teams. Both of us fighting for playoffs. And nobody's going to be excited to play us. This defense, and this is something we talked about before, I want teams to say, shit, we got to play the Vikings this week. That defense is going to give offensive coordinators nightmares. We've reached that point with this defense. The offense doesn't scare anybody right now, but that defense is making offensive coordinators sweat bullets when they're waking up at 3:00 in the morning, trying to figure out what they're going to do to combat Flores' defense. And to this point, nobody really has been able to. I mean, we have been in a perfect world. We've been in every game that we played this year. We literally, there was not one game that we have played this year that we could not have won or should not have won. And, it comes down to the turnover battles, everything else. But even with all that, that defense has kept us in every game that we have been in from start to finish this year. And, what could have been, what might have been, but what could still be with this defense. And with, like I said, we get Jefferson back and we have a quarterback that does not try to get him killed across the middle of the field. Brandon Powell was shaken up a little bit this week, but he should be all right. Jalen Naylor, I believe, is in concussion protocol. So his availability for Saturday is probably doubtful. I would say, being it's kind of a little bit of a short week here. KJ Osborne, he's got to work on getting out of that slump he's in. Like it was Doc or whoever mentioned earlier, get a couple of good games and get some confidence back, I think would make a big difference for him as well. But Hope Flores wants to stay and run it back. We have unfinished business. Yeah, but the business this year is not finished either. I have absolutely no idea what to think, how far this team can go, just because of how unpredictable this year has been for everything, how much crap we've gone through, everybody that we've lost, losing your starting quarterback, losing the best wide receiver in the NFL for basically 8 games. And yet we're sitting here with 4 games to go in the regular season, controlling our own destiny, not only to make the playoffs, but win our division after all this. We have the possibility. We have the tools. We have the talent. Now, if we can just get enough production out of the offense to get us there, the sky is still the limit. I'm not giving up on this team yet. I see a lot of guys saying we got to play Jaron Hall just to see what we have out of him. Playing Jaron Hall at this point is throwing in the towel on the season. I mean, everybody's saying we need to know what we have in him. No, we don't. Not right now. If the wheels fall off the next 3 weeks and we fall out of the playoffs, then let Hall play after that. Hall, he looked okay in a series and a half against Atlanta. Very small sample size. Josh Dobbs looked incredible for 5 quarters and then completely fell off the face of the earth. Jaron Hall is an unknown, and with everything within our grasp at this point in time, you can't turn to that just to see what we have. We know what we have in Nick Mullins. Is it spectacular? No. Is it solid? Probably should be. He's proven in the past he can do enough to win you a few games when it's necessary. And with everything else, everything is available. Everything is there. We have to take advantage of it. If you throw in the towel now, it doesn't speak well to your team. It doesn't speak well to your fan base, any of that stuff. Doc, exactly. Average defense, and we talked about it. Trent Dilfer winning a Super Bowl. He was awful. With Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. Now, interestingly enough, Joe Flacco looked pretty goddamn good again for the Browns. Yeah. Brad Johnson winning a Super Bowl, Tampa Bay. Does it happen a lot? No, but it does happen. And why not us? Why not now? I guess we'll put it that way. Robert, I want us to beat the Packers down. I always want us to beat the Packers down. Doesn't matter if we are 12-2 or 1-12. I always want to beat the Packers. Packers are starting to generate a lot of hype around the national media again. They've all of a sudden hopped on Jordan Love, starting to anoint him as the next in the lineage of Hall of Fame quarterbacks. He's been playing better the last few times, but look back to that game we played against him a month or so ago. Flores had him confused and mixed up, and there's no reason why we can't do it to him again. Hall has more practice time than anyone else. more accurate than Dodge. I don't think that's throwing in the towel. But he's a rookie 5th round pick. And we don't know what we have in him other than what they've seen at practice. And in my opinion, if they'd seen enough in practice for him to be starting, he'd be starting. And it's not, an indictment on Jaren Hall. He's a 5th round rookie quarterback. Nobody expected him to play this year at all. Had Nick Mullins not been on injured reserve when Kirk went down, Jaren Hall would not have played that, would not have started the Atlanta game, would not have played that 2 series before he got hurt. Nick Mullins at that point in time. It's not like we only have Jaren Hall till the end of the season and we're going to lose him after that. We have him under team control for 3 more years. Regardless of, if he turns out into be something down the road, great. We either have a very solid backup quarterback or we have a very valuable trade piece that we can trade for draft capital to help further build the team down the road. They're not going to put their eggs in the Jaren Hall basket for 2024. They're going to take a quarterback. They're going to take one probably in the 1st round. Whether it's where they're picking, whether they trade up to get him, remains to be seen. That, again, is another discussion for another time. But I'm in agreement with the Vikings on this one. Would I like to see what Jaren Hall could do? Yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing it. But with where we're sitting and how the things have fallen into place here, you can't do that. You go with the known quantity, the known commodity in Nick Mullins, the guy you brought here who fits the offensive scheme, and which is a big reason why he was brought in here, because he is the same type of a quarterback as Kirk Cousins is. He's a pocket passer. He can stand back there. He can read the field. He's not super mobile, but he can move around a little bit if need be. But I think that's the best thing for this offense at this point in time. And that's what they're going to go with. Mullins is going to be the starter until either the wheels fall off it or the season's over or he gets hurt. And then we roll into 2024, wipe the slate, and do what we need to do there. Mullins can read defenses. Hall's going to get confused. Exactly my point, Robert. 5th round rookie has not seen this stuff. Nick Mullins has seen this stuff. He started 18 games, I believe it is, in his career. So he has seen what NFL level defenses will throw at him. Jaren Hall, he saw preseason where defenses are very vanilla. The reads are easy. You most likely would have to cut the playbook back for Hall to run things. Whereas Nick Mullins can run everything in the playbook that Kirk Cousins could run. Now, don't confuse me trying to say that Nick Mullins is as good as Kirk Cousins, because he's not. But he is the same type of quarterback. He's been here for 2 years. He knows the system better than either of the other 2 guys that are here. And having him play, he'll start this week and he'll continue to start until further notice. What happened to the offense you saw in the first half against New Orleans? New Orleans made changes at halftime from what they saw from Dobbs. And personally, I think some of it also was Kevin O'Connell going away from that backyard sandlot style that we played for basically a game and a half, trying to get more into his structured offense, which, as we now is painfully clear, Josh Dobbs is not a for. It came from the Shanahan offensive tree. Exactly. It's a West Coast style offense, the Shanahan, McVay, all that stuff. It's based on precision. It's based on timing. It's based on accuracy. Josh Dobbs is not accurate. Nick Mullins is more accurate. Jaren Hall is an accurate passer. And that's a lot of the reason why I think they drafted him, is because he has that potential to fit into the system. But we can't kid ourselves and say a 5th round rookie is ready to be thrown into the middle of a playoff race and expect success from him. Do I think it'll happen this year? No, but want to enjoy as many games as we win before the off season, so I tend to be hopeful. That's my thought on this too, Doc. When with Kirk going down, everything else, I said it back then. It's the expectations for this team went completely out the window when Cousins went down. We were out with Jefferson for 7 games. We're playing with house money basically right now, because if we don't make the playoffs, nobody's going to look at the Vikings and say, you had a failure of a season for those reasons, because we lost Kirk, because we lost JJ for most of the season, all of that stuff, different injuries up and down the roster. But if we can produce and we can make a run, we're playing with house money. Enjoy the ride. Let's take it as much as we can and win as much as we can and let the chips fall where they may. Is it very possible that we make it to the wild card round and end up losing the first game again? Yeah. But it's also just as likely right now, like I said before, with the way this defense is playing, it's equally as likely right now that we could win that wild card game. We could get the division round. Depending upon, and this team can play with anybody with this defense. And if the offense can score enough points, we can make a run yet. And I'm not giving up hope. I'm not throwing in the towel until it's impossible. Am I going to get disappointed at the end of the year? Probably. The life of a Vikings fan. I've been a Vikings fan for 40 some odd years. After every one of those 40 some odd years, I've been disappointed at the end of the season. So if it's another year, oh well. But I'm going to enjoy it as it is right now. So, but with that, we have gone on for almost 50 minutes here. Anybody else have anything they want to hit here really quick before we call it a night? I want to go cheer on the New York Giants and see if they can beat Green Bay tonight. Look at the Browns with old Joe. Yeah, Flacco looked very good. I watched most of that game yesterday. Flacco looked damn good, I thought. We all know the drill. Absolutely, Doc. But yeah, we have a Saturday game this week in Cincinnati against the Bengals. Of course, they're out. Joe Burrow, our old buddy Jake Browning quarterbacking. So that'll be interesting to see how that goes. Make sure you tune in the rest of the week here as well. Brunswick's Best on Wednesday. Friday, we plan on having another live show for the studio show, previewing that game against the Cincinnati Bengals. So make sure you tune in for that as well. If you have not done so, hit that like button on your way out the door. Helps us out a ton. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook. Want a big thank you again to all you guys in the chat, showing up every Monday night when we do this. I love talking football with you guys. One of the highlights of my week. I enjoy the hell out of it. Shout out, as always, to the Filipino fan club, Noy, Jen, Bibi, all you guys over there that watch every week. Appreciate that as well. Skol and get the win, Robert. Absolutely. Maybe you score more than 3 points this week. It's going to take more than 3 points to beat Cincinnati this week. But, hey, a win by 1, a win by 30 is still a win. Doesn't matter either way. So, we'll take them wins any way we can get them. Good, bad, ugly, whatever. An ugly win is better than a pretty loss. So, but with that, you guys have a great rest of your week. We'll see you Wednesday. See you Friday. And go Giants. Let's go watch them hopefully take down Green Bay for us tonight. So have a good night, everybody. We'll catch you later.